Hello, my name is Doug Smith, and welcome to another edition of Portsmouth This Week, the voice of Portsmouth Town Hall. Today is July the 7th, 2012, and my guests in the studio today are the interim fire chief, Mike Cranston, and Town Administrator John Klimm. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mike, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been with the Portsmouth Fire Department, and some of your background, perhaps.
Well, I was born and raised in Newport, Rhode Island. I moved to Portsmouth, Rhode Island in 1997. I've been with the fire department since 1991. Interestingly enough, I joined the fire department 5 days before Hurricane Bob, so it was kind of a crash course in firefighting. Yeah. We were very busy for that few days where the storm affected us. I'm married. I live in Common Fence Point now. I have 4 children and 3 stepchildren. I've been with the department for 21 years. I do have a bachelor's degree in fire science. I graduated from Providence College back in 1995, as well as some other certifications. I'm a Rhode Island EMT level cardiac. I'm also NFPA certified as a fire instructor, a fire officer, fire inspector, fire investigator. So I've always tried to keep up with the training, and always felt like you should be at least as well trained as the people who work for you and with you.
Sure. I don't think we have a requirement in Portsmouth for our first responders to live in town, do we? Or do we not?
The requirement is that you live within a 10-mile radius.
Okay, so you can get here within a certain amount of time. Right.
Yeah, there was definitely a mile/his response time ordinance that was enacted back, I believe, in the early 90s. And I may have the numbers a little bit wrong on that, but there is something in there.
Yeah, sure. So some kind of reasonable time.
I think it's a 20-minute response time or 10-mile radius.
Okay. How are you guys organized at the Portsmouth Fire Department, and how many firefighters do you have altogether?
There's a chief of the department. Then there's a deputy chief of fire prevention. He's in charge of doing the inspections and the plan reviews and those types of things, investigating the fires. And then the third in command is the captain of administrative captain of EMS and training. He is in charge of kind of the human resource part of the job, as well as all the EMS, both reports and equipment, making sure we have what we need and everyone's doing the training that's required. Every month there's some mandatory training that each person in the department needs to get done, and we track it through our captain, who's in charge of that. After that, there are 4 shifts, which we refer to as platoons. Each one is led by a captain, and then there are 2 lieutenants, and then 5 firefighters. So there's 4 shifts of 8, and then there's 3 administrative or command staff.
Typically on let's say a week when there's not a lot of fires going off, what kind of hours does the average firefighter work down there?
The shifts consist of 2 10-hour days. So say today is A group's first day, as an example. They come in for 8 o'clock in the morning and they work till 6 o'clock at night. And then tomorrow they'll repeat and they'll come in at 8 o'clock in the morning and work until 6 o'clock at night. And then on the third day, they don't come in until 6 o'clock at night, and they'll work until 8 the following morning, and they repeat that again, and then they're off for 4 days.
Yeah.
So in a 4-day span, it's 48 hours, but because it's based on an 8-day cycle, it averages out to 42.5 hours, I believe, a week.
Yeah, that's an interesting watch schedule. As a former Navy guy, I spent a lot of my career on watches. So.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of time to adjust to it, but once you get into it, it's hard to imagine working another schedule.
The mid-watch is particularly tough, I know, to come off a day and go into a mid-watch.
Right.
What kind of training do firefighters, let's say somebody wanted to become a firefighter in Portsmouth, what would they have to do in terms of training, physical qualifications, et cetera, things like that?
Well, there's a physical agility test that's put on by the state, and I believe that test is offered twice a year. It's a physical agility test. They run you through an obstacle course, carrying some hose, carrying a mannequin that is full of sand that probably weighs, I think, 150 pounds. You have to carry it, I believe, like 100 feet You have to wear a weighted vest to simulate that you're wearing firefighter gear, and everything's timed. Once you complete that certification, you are certified for a year. And that's what most of the departments, including Portsmouth in the state, use as the physical part of being qualified. And then there's also a written test that is put on. And anyone who's interested in joining or becoming part of the fire department can go to any one of your local bookstores or the library and get a book on how to prepare to take that test. It's not really a fire-based group of questions. It's more kind of general aptitude type questions. Once those two things are completed, the candidates are ranked, and then there's a background check done on. Oh, actually, there's a hiring panel typically in Portsmouth that interviews the candidates and then decides who they want to hire. You also have to have in Rhode Island EMT cardiac level certification, because we are all in the Portsmouth Fire Department certified in advanced life support, which means that we start IVs on people that are very ill. We can do EKGs and see what's going on with the patient's heart, and administer medication if needed.
So somebody takes the state test. They come down and then there's a written test that they have to take. They get hired. Let's say I assume the board that screens these people are made up of firemen primarily. Some people that work in your department. And then I assume that there's more training that goes on as they come into the groups.
Yeah, absolutely. When a person...
Platoon, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm a Navy guy.
When someone's hired, it typically takes, depending on the scheduling of the classes, if they're going to work days. Typically when a new employee comes in as a third-class firefighter, they work days, and they have to be certified through the National Fire, NFPA is what we refer to as National Fire Protection Association. They have to be certified to firefighter level 1, firefighter level 2, and hazmat. Once those 3 certifications are issued, it's a nationally accredited certification, and then they also have to be trained in the policies and procedures of the Portsmouth Fire Department. They have to learn the street locations, the hydrant locations, the names of the businesses, and particularly in Portsmouth we have several streets with the same names, different endings. We have boulevards, avenues,
Try
streets,
giving
and
somebody
roads.
directions to go anywhere in Portsmouth.
Right.
It gets very difficult.
As well as, we have several businesses with the same names. We have, whether it's Rite Aid, Cumberland Farms, Dunkin' Donuts, they all have the same name. And then we get into Prudence Island, which we also cover. They have the same names on their streets as well. So there's a lot that we need to make sure that these new employees know when they come in the building before we kind of turn them loose.
Yeah. I assume, too, that once these guys are incorporated into your groups, into your platoons, they have to continue some kind of physical qualifications. Do you do that every year, or how does that work out?
Recently, we started a physical fitness program in the department. One of our firefighters is actually also trained as a trainer, a physical fitness trainer, and he's put together a program, and he comes in, and when he's on shift, getting all the different shifts involved in this program, and we ran Biggest Loser contest and that kind of stuff, and we've had a tremendous amount of success with it, and a lot of people lost some weight and just became much healthier, and obviously it helps with the job. Our job is tremendously physical at times.
It must be, yeah.
So it's definitely, it's good all around.
I noticed too last week or the week before, whenever we had these small boat capsizes in this kind of river off Sandy Point Beach, the boats that helped out, you had 2 of your boats, I believe, from the fire department that went down there and helped out. What kind of equipment like that do you have? How many boats? How many trucking, ladder trucks, etc.? What kind of stuff do you guys have, and where do you keep it?
Well, we're all housed out of one station, which is right next door to the police station on East Main Road. We have a 95-foot tower ladder, which is our ladder truck. We also have 2 fire engine pumpers, And then we have a third one that we keep in reserve in case there's a problem with one of the first two. They need to go in for regular service or whatever. We can move that truck up. Then we have 2 rescues that we keep in service at all times. And then we also have a backup rescue as well, so that if one of those rescues needs to be serviced, then we can do that. We have 2 specialty trailers. One is for mass casualties. We are one of the state sites. In case there's some type of disaster somewhere in the state, they call to certain fire departments and say, can you dispatch this trailer? And we have personnel that are trained to use this trailer to treat some type of mass casualty. So we do have that trailer, and then we have a special hazards trailer, which contains all of our, we have a couple of specialty teams like confined space and high angle stuff because of, we have 2 bridges in town. As well as some ravines and that kind of stuff. So we do have a high angle team as well. And we keep all that specialized equipment in those trailers. And then we have 2 boats that we keep in the station. We have a 19-foot Boston whaler that's on a trailer. And we typically use that boat to cover the east side of the island, the Sakonnet River. And then we have a 10-foot inflatable boat with a small outboard on it that we use if we have a quick rescue off of a beach, or if we need to use it in a pond. It allows us quicker access. And then we actually have a 30-foot boat that we keep on the west side of the island down at East Passage Yachting Center that we use to cover Prudence Island, because typically if somebody has a medical emergency on Prudence Island, then the volunteers over there treat the patient and bring them to the dock, and then we send our personnel over there to retrieve that patient and bring them to the hospital.
Now, presumably those two boats, the smaller ones you talked about, were the ones that are helped out in the Sandy Point beach problems that they're having. The larger one, is that kind of coordinated with the harbor master's boat, which I think is also...
We try and keep our boats together just for practical reasons. Sure. If for some reason, and it hasn't happened, but we always want to plan for the worst in our business. If we were to get down to our boat and there was a problem with it and it didn't work, then we could just jump on the police boat and use that boat as well. Our people have been trained on their boat, their people have been trained on our boat. So it's a good relationship that we have, and it offers us a little bit of redundancy in the system. As far as the marine incidents themselves go, Portsmouth covers more water than any other community in the state. We have 36 square miles of water that we cover. With that being said, we do have a lot of marine incidents. We have a lot of traffic coming up and down Mount Hope Bay, as well as in the Sakonnet River, as well as people on the beaches. So with that in mind, in other cities and towns that also have a lot of water in the state, we tried to come up with a way to better cover it and get more assets from other communities involved in coordinating our efforts if we do have something going on. What we did was, just this past winter, we had several meetings with the United States Coast Guard and with other departments, and we were able to put together a plan of action for the state. So anytime, and the reason I bring it up is because we implemented it the day those sailboats all capsized. We actually call the city of Cranston and their fire department, and we say we have an incident and we have a marine designation for that particular area of the Sakonnet River, and they dispatch 4 or 5 assets from around the state as well as us.
Really?
And we all head in that direction. And then once we arrive on scene, we can either ask for more assets at that point or tell them that thank you, but we don't need their help right now.
Okay, so this is like a central location in Cranston for Rhode Island, and presumably they coordinate with the Coast Guard as well, I would guess.
Right. We've set this whole thing up with the Coast Guard, and the plan of action was to use there's some, they call them the Port of Providence Marine Strike Teams. There's 4 boats that were bought throughout the state, and they're kept at fire departments as part of the Port of Providence grant for protection and escorting and to fight fires that happen at marinas and boatyards and that kind of stuff. So we wanted to figure out the best way to use those assets, as well as the assets that are next door to us if we need them, in a coordinated effort with the Coast Guard, because we're firefighters and we're used to speaking a certain language. But when you start dealing in emergency situations with other agencies, sometimes there's some confusion just as far as language goes and that kind of thing. So this was a way to get us all on the same page, provide a better service with more assets, and be more coordinated.
Yeah, I think Getting back for a second to your equipment issues, what do you have on Prudence Island, and what happens if there's a fire on Prudence Island?
Prudence Island has their own fire department, led by Chief Marshal, and they have their own firehouse and their own apparatus. Typically, if they get a fire, the call comes, any call for Prudence Island typically comes into our fire station. On our dispatch screen, we can page them out. So we press a button and we send a page to Prudence Island, page them out, either a rescue truck or a fire truck is needed at such and such an address. And then we also page them electronically through an email, which goes to their pager to give them the same information, just as a redundancy. Then typically they call us back when they're at the station and they're responding. Now if it's a fire, typically we'll take a group of our on-duty personnel as well as a bunch of air packs and equipment that we feel like we may need, and we'll head down to our boat that I told you earlier we keep in the water on the west side to head over there and assist them in their firefighting.
Now, is there a boat on Prudence Island, or
no?
You use your boats?
We use our boat
on the west side of the island. Another question that occurred to me as you're talking about the different pumpers systems and other things that you guys have, are there any places in Portsmouth that are problems for water? I've seen every once in a while in the news you'll read about they went to the house, and not necessarily in Portsmouth, but they go to this farmhouse or something, and there's no water main nearby. Are there any places in Portsmouth that are like that, or are we pretty well covered with town water?
We're very well covered as far as hydrants. The town is completely full of hydrants. The problem that we've run into, in my experience, has been when you have long driveways or long laneways to the house. Typically, you get into a problem of you start to lose a lot of pressure due to friction loss from laying a large length of hose. We've tried to combat that problem, and we've transferred a lot of our 3-inch hose to a 4-inch hose, which, even though it's only 1 inch difference in diameter,
sure,
makes a tremendous
volume.
In volume of water carrying capacity. So we've taken steps to kind of combat that problem, and we can also do things like relay pumping if that was the case. It's a little bit more time consuming, but no, I would say that is not the norm.
Yeah, it's probably not as big an issue, say, as it is in Little Compton or someplace like that where things are far apart and out there. We're in the fireworks season, as you well know, and we just got past the 4th of July. What kind of advice do you have to people who are considering setting off fireworks in their backyards for some kind of celebration?
My advice would be to don't do it. Fireworks are very dangerous.
Okay, well, they won't take that advice. So what's the next bit of advice?
In Rhode Island, the legalized fireworks are fireworks that are ground-based, that don't involve a projectile and don't explode.
Okay.
That does not make them particularly safe just by themselves.
They are
like
explosives, after all. I mean,
there are explosives, and they get very hot. If you see the kids with the sparklers, those get 1,000 to 1,200 degrees, and they're very capable of causing first, second, and third degree burns. My advice would be, number one, don't use them. Leave the displays to the professionals. But if you're going to use them outdoors only, in a safe area, with adult supervision, with safety glasses, gloves, and a competent water source.
So a can of beer on your right hand isn't a...
That's not a competent water source.
Safety equipment. Do they need a permit? Should they call you guys and say, we're going to be setting off some fireworks? Would that be useful, or would you be flooded with...
The problem is a lot of the fireworks that are being used are not the legal type, first of all.
So they probably wouldn't report those to you.
Right. I find it difficult to believe that they would call me and say, I have a whole bunch of illegal fireworks. I just wanted to let you know I'm going to be lighting them off.
Right.
With that being said, obviously it would be helpful to know what's going on as far as people lighting off legal fireworks, just to make sure that there is adult supervision and some safety. I mean, if that was the case and somebody wanted to call the station, obviously we would love that, and we would love to send somebody down there and go over a couple of safety things, do a quick walkthrough of what their plan is, and to offer them some, assurance.
Well, I know you need a permit from you guys to build a fire, like burning leaves, brush, et cetera, which makes a lot of sense to me. I'm constantly amazed at how little we know about all the other functions that the fire department does in terms of permitting things, in terms of inspections and all those kind of things. Could you discuss a few of those, perhaps?
Sure. The fire department is in charge of all plan review, which means anytime somebody wants to build something or do some type of renovation to a piece of property, the plans have to be approved through the fire department, both for life safety, for the fire alarm system, and or a suppression system if one's required by the fire code. That also includes anytime somebody wants to transfer property. If there's going to be a deed transfer, then the property also needs to be inspected by the fire department, and a certificate is issued saying that all the smoke and carbon monoxide detectors are in proper working order and located in the right places. We also do walkthroughs, if you will, for businesses for our own pre-planning. So,
Sure.
So we know this. We have newer people on the fire department. We walk them through a big facility, so they know the layout. They know what we have and don't have in that. And then we also do things like we issue all the addresses in town. That's something that I don't think people realize. There's a specific system in Portsmouth for giving addresses. I'm trying to think of an example of a street. If you, right down here on Viking Drive, let's use as a for instance, the addresses always start from, I shouldn't say always, 99% of the time the addresses start from the fire department side and out. So Viking Drive, as an example, would start on Park Avenue. So somebody's building a house on the right, all the odd numbers are issued to the right side of the street, and all the even numbers are issued to the left side of the street. And what we do is we would measure from Park Avenue straight down the street till it lines up with where the front door of the house would be. If it's 150 feet down the road on the right, that is the address of number 15. We drop the last number off. That gives our personnel, when they're responding for a call of a fire at somebody's house,
Sure, you have some
I know
idea where
I'm going to be laying
where-
150 feet of hose in from Park Ave.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that. That's see, there's a lot of things that the public I don't think understands about what you guys do.
Right.
One of the things that I thought was interesting was we have this big complex, Carnegie Tower at the Carnegie Abbey. What kind of problems, unique problems, would that cause for firefighters? Do you have to go through this first to take a look, or do they have their own firefighters?
No, we cover the Carnegie Tower, and it's a big concern of mine as the chief of the department. Anytime there's a fire in a high-rise structure like that, there's a tremendous amount of time to get all the equipment on scene, and then to get from the ground floor to wherever
Sure.
the fire is. Now that building's 23 stories. That is pretty significant. That's like a 10-minute walk time just up the stairs. If the building's on fire, usually we can't take the elevator.
Yeah, right.
You know, but our personnel have been working very hard to make sure that they go down to the Carnegie Tower and they actually train in the staircases, seeing how fast they can get up and down the stairs, 23 stories in full gear with a pack on. And it takes a lot out of you. So if you look at it that way, a lot can happen in the development of a fire in the first 5 minutes. If it's going to take the fire department 10 minutes to get up there, then thank God there's a sprinkler system that works very well there. There's an early notification system that's tied in directly to our department. But we would rely heavily on mutual aid, and we have a plan set up so that if there is a significant incident down there, such as a fire, we have at least 3 or 4 other communities responding off the initial alarm.
Now, what communities? I assume Middletown, but also Newport on the island and Tiverton as well?
We have Tiverton, Bristol, Middletown, Newport, several. And if we strike, not to use too much jargon, but if we strike a second or a third alarm, then we're also asking for help from at least 3
Sure.
or 4 other communities.
And the flip side of that is you guys have to go to support them occasionally too.
Oh, absolutely. We have a very good mutual aid agreement with our surrounding communities. We go to Tiverton a lot to help them. We go to Middletown a lot to help them. And they also reciprocate. They come to our town and help us when we're busy.
Now, do you guys do any kind of public events or public information things to educate the public in fire issues?
What we do is every fall during Fire Prevention Week, we have a couple of firefighters that we send out to every school, and they give a talk to all the kids and the teachers at the schools. What we've done in the past and what we're trying to move forward with is to get an adult education program established and have firefighters go out to the apartment buildings in town. We have Anthony House, we have Aquidneck Place, we have Bayview, and give a brief adult-oriented fire safety speech, just answering questions, you know, going over some stuff. And then last year we started an open house at the fire station, and we're going to have one again this year at the end of September, where we invite the public into the fire station to take a tour of the station, look at all of our equipment, ask us any questions that they may have, and then again have some fire prevention material for the younger kids. And then typically we also provide some food and some drink as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, if people could bring their kids down, but I think an open house would be a good time to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. But that being said, the public is always welcome to come into the fire station with or without their children, anytime, day or night.
Unless you guys are leaving in a big hurry.
And you know what? If we're leaving, we'll ask you to just stand by for a few minutes until somebody gets back in service, and when they get back, they'll give you the tour.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate all your comments. John, I know you haven't had a chance to say much, but I'm very impressed with this young man, and I think you got a really good fire department there working for you.
We do have an excellent department, and I am extremely impressed by the chief. The transition from the chief that retired to our existing chief now was seamless, and I'm very appreciative of his leadership in that regard.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. We have a couple minutes left, and I would like to just try to mention a couple of the events that are coming up in the next week. First, Tall Ships. And if you've never seen Tall Ships in Newport, even though I don't like to go to Newport in the summer except by boat, it's well worth it. Try to get out on Monday to catch their parade of sail, where they come under the bridge and go back out. It's quite a show. On a more serious note, the town council meeting is on Monday night at the town hall at 7 o'clock. Topics to be addressed include the status of the Portsmouth wind turbine. Just a couple other tidbits here, and there's many more of these. If you go into the Portsmouth Patch site, they have a lot of events upcoming. A couple of note: the auditions for the Portsmouth Community Theater's production of Carousel are this Saturday and Sunday. And the show will run from August 22nd to the 26th, and they're looking for children, adults of all ages, preferably some that can sing or dance or something, but experience is not necessary. Also, the middle school playground brick fundraiser is going on Monday all day at the Portsmouth Middle School. By the way, that auditions are taking place at the Aquidneck Island Christian Academy down there on East Main Road. There are several events at the Portsmouth Library taking place next week, and I encourage people again to go to Portsmouth Patch for details about these. At the library, they have something just about every day for people. So there's plenty going on the middle of the summer here in Portsmouth. And I have to leave with, don't forget the free American band concert at the Klimm Manor House on the 19th of July. I think it's going to be a great, hoping the weather stays like it is today, it should be a great event. Chief, thank you very much for coming on board today and talking to us.
Thanks
John,
for having us.
good to see you again. That's it for me, Doug Smith. We'll see you in the next edition of Portsmouth This Week.
In 2012, Rhode Island's new voter ID law will go into effect. You're going to need to bring with you identification when you go to the polls to vote. A Rhode Island driver's license, a Rhode Island ID, a student ID, or any state or federal government issued identification card with a photo on it is sufficient to vote. If you do not possess one of those forms of identification, we will provide one to you for free for voting purposes only. For details, please call us at 222-2340.